Alright, what is good, fishing fam? In today's video, we're going to go over the top 3 baits. And listen, by no means am I saying these are the only baits that are going to work for this time of year, but these are just a few you can choose from to make bass fishing a little simpler for you. Fishing tips for the end of summer, early fall. And there's really 3 main baits. This video is going to be more for the end of summer. The next video will be for beginning of fall, because that's probably when I'm going to post it. But there's really 3 main baits I like to use at the end of summer, and you can use these baits in the fall as well. In fact, most of these baits will work just as well in the fall as they will or would have in the summer. But we're going to go over 3 techniques, or 3 totally different techniques, and they're all very much fun. They're my favorite techniques personally, and let's get started. So the first technique, and probably maybe not my, well, goodness gracious, maybe not my favorite technique, but it's probably the easiest one to learn, is the football jig. And you can use a flipping jig, you can use a pitching jig, you can use a swim jig, you can use whatever you want. But my personal favorite is the football jig. This thing comes through rocks really well. I like to fish in areas right by a boat dock, or right by just a boat launch, or deep water. I love fishing a football jig. The setup I throw it on is a Lewis Mach 2 speed stick. It is a 7-foot medium heavy. I personally, I don't know about you guys, but I don't love, especially light jigs, anywhere from, I'd say, ½ ounce or below. I don't like to throw them on a heavy action rod. If you get to 3/4 of an ounce and above, you might want to start throwing them on your 7/6 heavies, but I have 65-pound braids, so I don't really want to throw a jig on that anyway. But I just like a 7-foot medium heavy for my lighter jigs and my lighter wire jigs. See, that's kind of a relatively light wire jig. I find that it has a lot more sensitivity, especially out in deep water or even in close contact. I found that I can work the jig a lot better. It's got, medium heavies and a nice little tip to it. If you want to use a heavy powered rod, maybe your heavy powered rod is really light or really sensitive and you like that for jigs, by all means, do whatever you want. I'm just saying, for what I own, this is my favorite rod to do most things with, because it's extremely, extremely, extremely light, and it just handles baits well, and it has a ton of action and a ton of sensitivity. It's a $50 rod. The reel is $200. It's the Shimano Slx Dc. I really like this reel. It casts a absolute mile. It's in 7.2 to 1, so it's kind of my all-around good jig and Texas rig rod or reel. I know that a lot of people like an 8-1 to 1 or even higher for their Texas rigs and jigs, but I just prefer that mid-range, so I'm not reeling in the slack too quick, or I'm not working that bait too quick, because I like to have a little bit of slack in my line when I'm working, especially like a jerk bait or something, maybe heavier baits, a little bit of slack in my line. But this thing handles jigs very well. I get a perfectly fine hook set, and the tip loads, you can feel everything. It's just a good all-around rod. I'll link it below. I'll link all the gear I use below in case you want to pick it up for yourselves. But my favorite jig weight is 3/8 ounce. Now, when you were flipping, maybe a big ½ ounce flipping jig towards cover or whatever, you might want to go to a heavy powered rod just to be able to turn that fish around quick. I like a medium heavy better. Just my opinion. If you're fishing thick, dense cover like pads or weeds or kind of sparse, chopped up grass, then a heavy powered rod is best. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, a jig on a medium heavy is fine for me, especially those lighter jigs. In this video, I'm not going to go into depth as to why each bait works. There's other videos out there that will explain that a lot better than I will, but just trust me when I say this is a good bait. The only places I would recommend fishing it by are rocky, maybe gravel, maybe a little bit of snot grass, but mainly just gravelly docks, boat launches. I love fishing this near the shore. And then out deep on some deep trees or even big rocks, big boulders. I love fishing it on rock and sandy bottoms or gravel bottoms. I hate fishing this in slop grass bottoms. It does not work as well. A flipping jig or a weightless Texas rig is going to work a lot better for that. The next bait, and this one's got line on it, but it's a topwater hollow-bellied frog. Hollow-bellied frog. I actually have a different rig on here that I'm going to talk about here in a second, but I like to fish a topwater hollow-bellied frog, and you arguably can't really fish a medium heavy on a topwater frog unless you're fishing in sparse to open water. But if you're fishing in thick pads with a frog like I usually do, when you get that blow up, that fish comes up. It eats your lure. It takes it underneath the lily pads. And if you aren't aware, each lily pad has its own individual stem, which makes it very difficult to get fish out of that stuff. So when a fish comes up, eat your lures, and go under there, you gotta fight that fish, which is hard enough, but you also gotta fight it through all that tough cover. So just trust me when I say a 7'2" to 7'6" is a good frog rod. I prefer that 7'6". It's just a little bit longer. It's got some good length. It's a heavy powered rod. I think you need that for frogs. It's very crucial. If I could only pick one lure that you need the heavy powered rod for, I would say it's the frog. You need a big rod. You need to have a big powerful hook set to get that fish out. You know, a quick reel is optimal, 7.5 to 1, all the way up to 10-1 to 1. Just a quick reel to reel in that slack quick. Because a lot of times, you know, that fish will eat quickly. You're not expecting it. You got to reel up your slack real quick. That has happened to me several times in the last couple of weeks. Is a fish will hit it when I'm least expecting it, and I'm not ready. I'm out of position. I got to reel in that slack, and usually I lose them still. But you know, the frog is a tough lure to catch fish with, in my opinion, because it's hard to get a good hook set. But that is a Booyah Pad Crasher. I'll link some budget-friendly frogs below. They're actually jawbone tackle frogs. They're very budget-friendly, $4 per frog. Those are great frogs for beginners, but these and Spros and Poppin' Pad Perchers are kind of more intermediate frogs, and I'll link those below as well. But I like to fish a frog around sparse to heavy cover. And the other day, what was happening was I was in pads. I was flipping for a long time, and I couldn't get any bites doing that, so I switched to a frog. I was working it really quick in the pads, and nothing happened. I mean, it didn't seem like there was anything in those pads. As soon as we got the jumbo up out of the water, I cast, and I just super slowly worked that frog. You know, maybe twitch, 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 pause for about 10 seconds, twitch, twitch, you know, just whatever cadence you like. But I was working that frog slow, keeping it in one spot for a long time. I got 3 blow-ups doing that. It was crazy how big of a difference it made by just changing my cadence or my action. I don't really understand how that happened. It just did. I mean, just simple things like changing your cadence can really affect what bass you catch, or if you catch, not what bass, but how many bass, or if you catch any bass at all. But I will do a frog fishing tips video later, because this thing is going to stretch out into the fall. It's going to be a great fall time bait. I love the frog, guys. There's no more fun bite out there. The last lure I wanted to talk about is something that is a very intimidating lure. I really don't think younger kids should be doing this technique. It's a heavy-duty technique. You gotta get good at it. It's really hard to get bit doing it. I literally, like, to be honest with you, I haven't caught a fish doing this yet. I just know it's a really good technique for this time of year, because those fish are up under the mats, under the pads, under the hyacinth or chopped up grass, whatever your cover is in your lake or pond. They are under that stuff, and they are waiting on ambush points to get their bait fish. And especially those big bass, they are lazy. They want a big profile bait to drop down right in front of them or swim right by them to get a good hit on the bait. You guys probably guessed it. The punch rig, or the flipping rig, whatever you really want to call it, because this is just a 1 ounce tungsten weight. It's not really a punching rig. If you don't know what the difference between flipping and punching is, it's basically to flip to the cover. Punching is punching through it. So if you were like, you're just kind of flipping to a reed clump or a grass clump, that's flipping. Or pads, or the edge of pads. When you punch, you are getting to the thickest part of that grass with usually a bass boat or some big boat, and you are punching into that matted grass just a couple feet away from you, and you were flipping like big fish out of that stuff. But this is a 1 ounce tungsten weight. It's an off-brand. I don't even remember what the brand is. This is a peg on there. Definitely want to peg your weight. There's no reason you shouldn't, because you know what'll happen is that fish will get it, and you're trying to fight them in, and if that weight's not pegged, it's sliding up and down. It's knocking against the fish's mouth, and you end up unhooking them a lot of times. Next thing is a 4/0 heavy wire flipping hook. This is so crucial. Do not use a 3/0 EWG or 4/0, 5/0, whatever your favorite size is. Do not use an EWG worm hook. That'll get ow. That'll get caught in the grass, and it's just a pain in the butt to get out. But I'm using that. I'm using a 7/6 heavy, 65-pound P-Line X TCB braid. Very smooth, very strong braid. I have not broken off once on this stuff, and this is just incredibly strong braid. I still have all 4 of my tungsten weights that I bought, but you know, the terminal tackle is not nearly as important as the baits, in my opinion. When I'm punching, I like a slick bait that'll go through the mat really easy, and for that I choose the Guggen Baits Nuke Punch. You can use a beaver, you can use a big craw, but and actually I'm gonna be not the video after this, but the video after the one I'm gonna post probably in a few days here when it hits fall, or when it hits September, is gonna be a jig trailers video and a a baits trailer video, because I'm very excited to make these videos. But just I'll take it out of the package to go ahead and show you. But I got 2 packs of these, one in green pumpkin and one in black and blue flake. These are super awesome little flipping baits. You want to tear the appendage apart there, but it's very similar to the Guggen Baits Bandito Bug. If you've ever used that thing is so good. But it's doesn't have much appendages. It's got 2 right there. It's got a ribbed body, so when it slides through the mat and gets into the water, it'll kind of push up water, and fish will want to come see what's going on. But this thing is incredible. It matches up really well with a big heavy weight. Very streamlined, very slick, gets in the cover well. Now I do want to mention one thing. When you were punching matted vegetation, whether it be pads, hyacinth, hydrilla, milfoil, coontail, reeds, whatever you're punching or flipping, always when you actually, I'll just show you. I'll go ahead and rig this bait up for you guys. But you're just going to take it. You're just going to do your standard Texas rig hook. I'm going to go in a little bit deeper than normal. You're going to put it up just like your normal Texas rig. These things will actually, instead of it having that shoulder, they'll have these bait keepers. You just kind of slide your bait right up on that keeper, like that. And when you bring it down here, you're not going to poke it out and Tex pose it like you would any other Texas rig. You're just gonna dig it right into that thing. I mean, you're gonna get it as deep as you can. You know, you got braid, you got a big heavy rod. It's gonna pop through just fine. But that is what your punching / flipping rig should look like. Very streamlined, very slick, very cool little bait. It's very heavy. I barely have any control over this thing, but this is called a punch rig. And you get it in there, you know, you see saw and just get boink. Oh man, it's so fun, you guys. Yeah. You can use cross-style baits if you want your bait to have a little bit slower falling action, which I don't really think that's going to affect it much when you've got a big tungsten weight at the end of your line. But, you know, if you want it to fall a little slower, you can use a big creature bait or craw bait. I love punching a big craw bait, but, you know, that bait's going to work a little bit better for punching because it's very streamlined. But the Strike King Rage Craw is a very, very good alternative for more action and a slower fall. Alright guys, that is pretty much it for this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Be sure to enter for the 420 subscriber giveaway. I'd really appreciate it if you can get me there quick. But in the next video we'll be talking about fall baits. We'll also be talking more about the fall transition, what happens. You already know what's happening. The dog days of summer are almost over. It's coming to an end. You know, school's starting up again. It's gonna start cooling off. The fish are gonna I'm still going to do a little bit more research on the fall transition, but I'm very aware of what happens in the summer. You know, it's super hot weather. It's just incredibly hard to catch fish, but I guarantee you, maybe not guarantee, but I promise you, you have a much better chance of catching fish in the fall. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what kind of video I should do next. What do you want to know? Because I'm sure I can figure it out. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.